Hello, hello. JJ DiGeronimo here. Thank you so much for joining another conversation inside Together We Seek. I love the stories, the journeys, the awakenings of so many of the guests that join me here each week at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a place where we really get to uncover how you've learned or how you've brought your gifts forward. And today I'm very excited to talk to David Hulse, the founder of the Academy for Spiritual Awakening. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, JJ. I'm looking forward to our time and conversation together today.
Well, we are definitely talking about one of my favorite things, which is frequency. And I believe if you change your frequency, you can change your life. After 8 years of in depth spiritual seeking and I would say soul searching uh, to learn more about myself, I have seen this happen for myself. The shift when I shift the inside, the outside shifts. But I'd love to know for you, when you think about changing your frequency, what does that really mean to you?
Well, I think the first thing that changes our frequency and raises it is to understand our identity of who we truly are as the divine being in this human story. And I think once you come from that point of view, that I'm not just a body and a human being and a third dimensional being, that I'm a higher vibration of deity within myself. That in itself raises your vibration. And when you raise your vibration, then you see everything through a higher vibration. So everything kind of morphs and changes and transforms from that level. So you got to have a vision, is what I'm saying.
I love that. I love that. And I would say that many of the people that I speak to in this platform are brought up in some form of religion, and some of them very strict religions. So when you say, you have to find your divine self or you have to dig within and really align with your biggest purpose, I think a lot of folks out of the womb, that's pretty hard to do. So like how did you even know to do that?
Well, I was raised in a very strict religion and fundamentalist family of ministers and preachers. But one thing I realized, JJ, looking back, is I always had a bit of a different rapport with time and space. What I mean is, I said, and I listened to this whole fear based type religious that was going on around me, but something was awakened in my heart, a different presence. And I realized that I was here kind of as a crossroad to decide, am I going to try to follow the family and the generations, or am I going to be true to myself? And I think I made that choice easy because I believe I made that choice before I came here. So it was kind of part of my contract in this, what I believe my last incarnation, third in 3D, completely. So I've lived quite a life, many lifetimes in this lifetime, to get to where I am out of that fundamental point. But it just didn't register with me. It just, something else was trying to awaken within me. And that's why I have this Academy Awakening, is I think something is awakening in people and they're not really sure what that means. But I think that we can help them to understand that this is a very global thing. It's not just a personal thing, but I think it's planetary. Uh,
Mm.
as the Earth mother is changing her frequency and vibration, we physically are her children, and therefore we're trying to match that vibration of electromagnetic fields. The human resonance is changing. Things are happening up. A day is perceived no longer as 24 hours, but 16 hours, because that's why we think the day goes so fast. I don't have enough time to do that. So that means when we change frequency, we change perception of how things are in a 3D world, as we tune ourselves to a more, what I call, 5D world and beyond.
I love that. And I want to talk about the 5D and the 3D. But I just go back to the point that you're in a very strict religion. You're in a household that has a lot of demands and expectations. Usually something happens, some kind of crossroads happen that allows you to kind of zap into this higher knowing or allows you to pursue this. How did you break free from that really structured environment to pursue what your soul was craving?
Well, really, a, what we'd say a cosmic experience happened to me at the age of 17 years old. Now, my church called this the infilling of the Holy Spirit, but actually, it was not a religious thing, but it was more of what I call a gnosis thing. Gnosis being Greek for direct knowledge. And so I began to tap into some kind of downloads that began to show up. For instance, I started having thoughts that I would have never had. And when you have a thought that you would have never thought of, then you're having gnosis. You're having direct knowledge that is entering into your consciousness. And I begin to have these thoughts about different things that I wasn't being taught from the outside of myself, but I was being taught from the inside of myself. And so before that experience, I was just this skinny, introverted, shy kid who didn't want to stand up and do a book report in school. To all of a sudden, this frequency changed in my voice, and this voice came out of me like, "Who is this that's speaking?" And people start listening to me. And so, as I've gone through this journey, I've done it publicly and just let everybody hear my journey, and I begin to develop, people who begin to resonate with me for over 6 decades in some sort of a ministry or some kind of coming together of different souls that begin to link together. So I have to say to you, I think this all happened because I came in with a choice not to get stuck in 3D systems, including my childhood religion.
I can understand this because I feel like I've known from an early age I had a much bigger calling, but I couldn't really figure out what that was. And so I had imaginary friends and I was looking for magic doors. My mom took me to Lilydale when I was 12 or
Yeah,
13 because I
Lily Dale.
lived very close to Lilydale. So
Uh-huh.
little things kept happening in my life, but honestly, I don't even think it really came forward for me until my late 40s. So the fact
Wow.
that you were able to tap into this inner voice at 17 is quite magical. So what have you been doing with this voice and how have you really used it to help other people recognize, connect and align with their inner self?
Well, I've tried to use my voice as a way to empower people. I think we've given our power away to so many things outside of ourselves that we become sort of powerless. When we're powerless, we're vulnerable, and those systems out there are very present to help us be formed in their image and likeness. And I guess I've been seen as a rebellious young man because I just wouldn't fall in line with what was supposed to be the normal way to go. So I've been true to that unique aspect of myself. But I'll tell you, one of the things, being raised in a very biblical background of literalist Bible, is one of the first thoughts that I had that I don't think I would have ever had of myself was nobody in the Bible spoke English. And I thought, well, what did they say? So at that young age, I started studying Greek and Aramaic and Hebrew, and I started finding out that it's nothing what has been translated into English. So that raised my vibration out of the literalism of the religion I was born in to more of a place of receiving what I call revelation. And because English is probably the furthest language from it's a lower vibration. If you think of English today, it's more about computers and whatever. Like German is cars and all of that. But when you get into Sanskrit and Aramaic, you get into higher vibrational frequencies that put you closer to your own innate intelligence. So I just started getting all of this stuff, and I found myself kind of channeling what I call my higher self when I spoke. And I might had something all prepared, but I would never go to the notes. I would just get into some kind of a flow of knowledge and information that just worked and resonated with some people, at a time.
That's helpful. And I just want to do a test. I have some notes that some people can't hear us online, so I just want to see if that's been corrected.
Yes.
But I really agree with what you're saying is that sometimes we don't have to necessarily know, right? We're tapping into a piece of us that is beyond our humanness. That is, well, that is the ancient wisdom that we brought into this lifetime. And I think for many of us, it takes us a while to uncover that ability.
It does, sometimes even lifetimes to do it. But however you believe about that, doesn't matter if you believe in one lifetime or a thousand lifetimes. The point is, our story tells us how we got here from there. And the people like on your audience, I'm sure, are people who have raised themselves to this level to be able to have any connection with this conversation whatsoever because of the things that has happened in their life to get them to this place. Well, I think this is happening in the planet itself. I think there is a raising of our frequencies. Um, I think a lot of people. I'm a leader, a spiritual guide for a community here in Charlotte called HeartLight Spiritual Community, and I've had more people telling me that I'm having balance issues. For instance, even myself, I've found myself. And we think we run to the doctor, and the doctor sometimes doesn't find anything wrong with us because I think what we are is sensitive to the changing of the magnetic fields that are going on in the world. Also, if you've heard of the Schumann resonance, which has been 7.83 frequencies for decades and decades, has changed to 13. And that means that now our perception of time has changed, that what we perceived as 24 hours is now only 16 hours. And we're trying to find a new balance, is what I'm telling you. And when I came to this 25 years ago, was actually through some of the teachings of quantum physics. That really helped me when I read one, Everything is Energy. Now, wait a minute, I thought everything had energy, but Einstein said, no, everything is energy, and that matter is only energy vibrating at different frequencies. So I thought if we want to transform, we got to go back to the world of vibration. And what came to me, believe it or not, was to use a tuning fork. Now, why a tuning fork? One thing about a tuning fork, you don't have to plug it into the grid. It's a raw vibration. It's not music that attaches to your emotional body. Like when I hear a song, I'll think about who I was breaking up with or who I was uh, just meeting or whatever. But when you hear a tuning fork, it stays present as just raw vibration. So I found these frequencies that were lost many, many centuries ago called solfeggio frequencies, and I turned them into tuning forks. And for 25 years, taught all over the world people how to use these tuning forks. Now I've passed that on to somebody else right now. I'm still involved in it. If anybody's interested, they can look at somadavid.com and you can kind of see what I'm talking about if you're interested in vibrational work. But I just love this fact that, let me just give you a Bible example. It says in the Bible, and God moved across the face of the deep. And I thought, I don't know what that means. I don't know what God what? What is God? An old man? Or what is God? And then when I realized that God is a field, is an energy, a consciousness, and it moved, I began to do a deep research and dive into the word move. And I found this old translation, and God fluttered. And I thought, well, that's interesting. God flutters. And then I went deeper and I found one that said, and God vibrated across the face of the deep. And I thought, all that has happened in the world of matter begin as vibration. Well, if we want to get into a new earth, we got to go back to pure vibration again and use different frequencies and vibrations to rematter the world uh, from this dense matter world into a much higher frequency world. And I think that's happening right now.
Mm. Oh, I think it is too. I mean, whether we want it or not, things are shifting. And I think that there's multiple frequencies, multiple types of humans vibrating at different frequencies. In fact, I always say, what radio station are you at? Because I have a tech background and I learned audio, um, analog before I went into digitals, right? So analog is frequency.
Yes.
And I always say, if you want to change your outside, you have to move up a radio station or two. So if you're vibrating at 94.7, you got to get to 95.5 or even 96.8. And that takes, really three things to shift that, right? It takes how you engage with the world, how you engage with yourself, and what you pay attention to. And these three things obviously need a lot more discussion, but it really is controlling and manipulating how you are showing up so that you can shift the frequency from within.
Absolutely. And there's people ask me all the time, what can I do? And of course, the first thing I said was to know your divine nature, to know that you're a higher, we call it higher self, right? But there is a higher frequency of us that we don't
Mhm.
use every day in this third dimensional world. Uh, we have to really align ourselves to find people who are of a higher frequency because we tend to tune to environment in which we choose to live in. So I don't want to be around lower vibrating frequencies of people who are, it's doomsday, the world is coming to an end, it's horrible. And we got a lot of that right now in the mood in this country politically and whatever. But if you're out there listening to us and you have become more spiritual than, say, religious, step up, step up and become a different frequency than fear and division and separation and hate, and put that vibration out that we are one, and that this is the world of my sensors, through my five senses is not the real world. It's the illusion world. And I want to be a part of the higher world of truth and light and so on and so forth. So there's just so many things that people can do through meditation, contemplation, uh, tuning forks, but also you can use sound bowls. I love using sound bowls. Anything that is sound and vibration that's available to us is a way of retuning ourselves into the next level of what it's going to mean to be human.
I couldn't believe more. Couldn't believe I believe you, and that's how I'm feeling too. And in fact, I use YouTube quite a bit to find just sound bowls, Tibetan sound bowls and others. I just play them in my house. So as I'm cleaning or cooking dinner,
Yeah,
I have sound bowls going on in my home from a local, a speaker I have in my house. And that's amazing how that can shift your energy. So you don't even necessarily have to pay for it, although being with a practitioner in person is always so much more powerful, I think. But if you can't afford it or you can't get to it, use your devices to create a learning, learn more on your devices, pay attention to what you're paying attention to, and listen to things that are helping you raise your vibration.
absolutely. When I started over 25 years ago, I was pretty much alone in some areas, but that's changed now. It is so available. Uh, the different uh, the different sounds are so available online that anybody can have access to it, and most of it is free.
Yes, it is amazing. And I just love having these conversations because I feel like people listen to this podcast because they know there's something bigger for themselves, but oftentimes they're not sure how to tap into it. And hearing stories like yours of having this, spiritual awakening is so powerful. And just the things that you do to keep yourself attuned in a frequency that creates the life you want to experience is so powerful.
Mhm. And one of the reasons I named this the Academy for Awakening is I believe that we have been sort of in a stupor or a sleep or an illusion state for so long we don't realize that we're asleep. And in that sleep, we're having a dream that I'm separate, a dream that I'm always in need, that I live in lack. That's the dream. I'll tell you, when they say the American dream to me, I'm saying, no, wake up from the American dream because the dream is the illusion. And this all started from my Bible background that Adam had a deep sleep come upon him, but I didn't find where he woke up. And I thought that meant everything about God getting mad, running him out of the garden, and sin and all that was a part of the dream. It wasn't part of what really happened. There is no separation that happened. There was just a belief that separation had happened. And religion has built a complete mindset on that idea that I'm not you and you're not me. And when the ego wants to prove that, it uses our body identity between gender, between race, between all these different nationalities that we are, proves that I'm not you. But if we are spiritual, we see that we are all the same spirit, the same being, the only begotten of the creator.
Mm.
Sorry, I
I
didn't
just
get
want to
me
sit in that. I
preachy,
just
but
want to sit in that for a minute because it's so true. And the more people who find this information will be able to rise above the 3D, the gimmickry of what is happening. the gimmicks of what is happening right now. And like it's just a tool to keep us in a low frequency.
That's right.
So with that, you have so many classes, you have workshops, you have your center, so or you have your academy. So what's coming up for you? And what are you sharing with people in person and online?
Yeah. Well, there's always classes on vibration and sound and raising your frequency. Exactly what we're talking about at all times. My thing is to help people to raise their consciousness. But before we raise our consciousness, there's some things that we've tapped into and put our power into, things that we believe that's not incongruent with our innate intelligence. And I think that people need to get in touch because I think people do know more than they understand. I really do. We call that intuition. When you had that intuitive a moment of something, you knew to do it, you knew to say it, but you didn't understand why you did it. So I work with raising people's understanding to their knowing level so they can have that gnosis experience. And when we do that, we become an aligned being. And right now, we really need to be aligned between our spiritual self and our human self. There's just a place in that story of the caterpillar when the caterpillar is just through and breaks down that it begins to be awaken in it the next stage of becoming the butterfly. And I use that because the Bible says we shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment. And that word change in the Greek is metamorpho. I love that. So really, we're going through now, and I want to say this. I want people to think about that caterpillar doesn't go through that to be an enlightened caterpillar. It is going through it to evolve itself to the next stage of its existence. So right now we're in a stage of not just changing in 3D to be better in 3D. We're ready to become a five-dimensional human being of light. And this is a big one, JJ. This is a big one that we're going through right now. And that's why there's so much intensity, I think, that's out there with people who feel polarized and all that kind of thing. But out of the midst of all of this has become what I call the light workers, the first fruits of the harvest. And that's really who I'm trying to address out there, who are really raising to this vibration, but their understanding is still down here. And we got to bring it up here and let it become one divine consciousness.
Well, I know a few light workers, so I could definitely help bring you to that. That's for sure. But this has been amazing. All the David's links are below. And if you're resonating with his message, if you want to learn about more about what he's doing, take a visit, check him out, connect with him online. I'm sure you will find exactly what you're looking for because I do not believe in accidents. So, David,
So,
thank you so much for joining us today.
and thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed our time together. Thank you.
Well, with this, we really appreciate you joining us and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.